Welcome to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Andrew Bartolotta. We're always honored to bring you conversations with individuals and organizations making an impact in our community and around the globe. And today we're talking about something near and dear to my heart, fatherhood, with the author of Rookie Father, a Playbook for Experiencing Fatherhood for the First Time, Kendall Smith. Kendall, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Andrew. Great to be on the show. Thanks for having me on.
Before we talk about Rookie Father, give listeners an idea for your background and the mission behind the book.
I am a proud father of an 8-year-old boy named Connor, married almost 19 years. And the book basically came about from my experience growing up, not having a father around, predominantly from the age of 9 all the way through adulthood. And when I sat down one morning thinking about my next writing project, I wanted to get into how meaningful it is to be a father and to be doing so with all the advice I have been given over the years from friends, family, my mother, grandmother, and applying that in a way that men could really ingest, understand in a way that it's written for how men actually read advice-driven content as opposed to a traditional self-help book.
I like that the chapters are very short. There's many of them, but the chapters, like you said, it's easily digestible for a father, for a man to read, understand, and take advice from that. Let's talk about some of the state of family life in America.
Well, it's interesting because when you look at the history of marriage in particular, marriage and raising a child, two parents raising a child, that formula has really been impacted by the rates of divorce in this country. And we have had a stubbornly high divorce rate of almost 50%. When you go back to the 50s, it was 10%. And through a number of social movements, women's rights, which we had to go through, and I think was a positive thing, but the net result today, I think today's generation of parents appreciate marriage a little more. They're starting later. They're not exchanging rings as frequently, but the state of family, I think it needs more attention, more focus. And I think the most important thing you can do, especially when you're baptized as a parent, is to really strengthen the relationship you have with your spouse and making sure that's a bedrock of stability. And if parents can work through that, if they come from a divorced home and they achieve that throughout the years that their children grow up, that's a huge success. And I think the more focus we have on it, the better.
I think this book really is something that should be mandatory for men that are either trying to start a family or even have young children or are trying to really create this family unit that is strong. I think that many times when it comes to family topics, women, there are self-help books and books geared towards women about family and blogs and magazines about that. But for men, there really isn't this guide playbook. And so Rookie Father really fills that void. Who are some of the people that you interviewed in your book, and what do they bring to the table?
I interviewed 4 different people. The first was the director and creator of a book about stay-at-home dads, Dana Glazer. And he was a stay-at-home dad. And he talked about how fatherhood has really evolved over the years. Anyone that walks into marriage or into the parenting years, like the 1950s dad, you're doomed. You're going to be in so much trouble. You're going to be emasculated. It's not going to work. That formula does not especially work with a much more educated, empowered generation of women. And we should be thankful we have that in our lives. So he basically gives a perspective about how fatherhood has evolved. The next person I interviewed was my mentor that I worked with in the publishing industry, a gentleman named Alan Katz. And he was always able to maintain a balance between family and work life. And it was so impressive. And outside of just being a great boss and mentor, I got into how did you manage your family when your kids were young and you had this high intense job where you were traveling 2-3 times a week out in New York, all around the country, all around the planet. And his perspective about managing time was fantastic. And then I interviewed 2 dads that were raising kids together, 3 kids. And they talked about their perspective as gay parents and how we should, as a society, accept any couple that is trying to raise kids. That is a definition of a family. And I follow that up with an article on my blog called, Two Dads Are Better Than None. And that's my perspective giving on what it was like not having a father and having two dads, the benefits of that in relation to that section of the book.
I think that sort of goes into my next topic, which is adoption, because many of us become fathers in different ways. And both of us have been blessed by adoption. We both experienced infertility with our wives and then ended up adopting. My wife and I adopted newborn twins, boy-girl twins last January. And then after years, like I said, of infertility, my wife found out she was pregnant in March with our youngest son. And so we had 3 kids in 11 months. So 2021 was a very busy year for my family.
I bet.
But let's talk a little bit about, I said off camera with you that infertility is not very often talked about with men. But then, so talk a little bit about that and then your experience with adoption and how that really plays out as becoming a father and being there for children, like you said, with those children that have 2 fathers.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you go back, I'll step back to, again, going back to the 40s, 50s, 60s, and infertility was a minor issue back then. It was still around, but today's parents, they have children at an older age. We've decided we wanted to get our career started. We want to enjoy life a little bit before we're in lockdown with a child. And we want to enjoy the freedoms. And that's just the generation, millennials, Gen X, it's been ongoing. The older you get, the more risk there is of infertility and more challenges. I can attest to the fact that being an adoptive father was one of the greatest things I ever did in my life. And my wife and I were over the roof. We had the same issues with infertility. And anyone that's listening that may be going through the same thing or maybe planning their family life out before children, to think about, if you are in that situation, just know and be reassured that when an adoption goes through and the process comes to an end, it is the greatest reset. If you've been through infertility, if you've tried in vitro, it is literally the greatest reset button in life. And I can't even tell you the moment we found out that paperwork was done, we're bringing our child home we adopted in the state of Florida. It is so amazing to be past it and to have your child, and you are a parent for life after that, no matter what. And I highly encourage parents to put that in the equation when they're thinking about tackling infertility and having that honest discussion, especially the men.
Great advice, Kendall, especially during the process when you talk about when the adoption comes to an end, the finalization process for those that are familiar with adoption and those that aren't. Like many of our family and friends didn't realize the process, the emotions, the very red tape that we have gone through, the expenses, and just the cost of adoption is just astronomical for many people. And so I think that is some great advice as well. And like you said, it is this great reset. And I, having a biological son and an adoptive son and daughter, but specifically with the sons, just looking at them, I do not see a difference. And when you experience adoption, some people may think, how can I love this child as much as maybe a biological child? And there really is there's no difference that I can attest to or experience. It is truly this beautiful love that is the greatest thing. And becoming a father, for those that are listening or watching that are hoping to expand their family, I mean, it is the best role yet, for sure. Do men embrace, and I would assume yes, but how so? Do men embrace self-help differently than women?
100%, and it's almost comical. I worked at Men's Health magazine for nearly 10 years. And in that time, my exposure to the editors, their content, representing that content, men consume self-help content differently, and we can't even refer to it as self-help. It's advice-driven content. Like men do not want to ask for help, no matter what, and they will refuse to do so. So the book takes the premise of suggesting solutions to different challenges. And that's why there's so many small chapters to get into scenarios, real world examples, and then providing a suggestion on how you can resolve it. Not this is how you should do it. or this is what the experts say. Yes, that's nice to have, but it's more, what can I use that's applicable in my life? And that's a point of reference I used when I penned the book.
What are some of the life lessons that you've learned as a father from your son that maybe some aha moments or some experiences that you would share that really put a smile on your face?
I think the first is to admit that children don't come with manuals and you're going to make mistakes. And when you think about all the education you put into your career, or advancing to the next level in your job, or studying to change careers, when a child enters your life, it is the most important job you'll ever have. And you need to be a sponge to get advice, to understand that you have to kind of explore new areas and look at things a little bit differently for the benefit of your children. And the other thing that the aha moment I've had is like, when, I make mistakes as a dad, and it's not, I don't want to say it's common, but when I do, and I knew I mess up with my son, I've got to go back to my 8-year-old and apologize and address it. Like, hey, here's how I handle this. It probably wasn't the best, and here's how I want to course correct, or here's how I want to take a different approach. And being able to admit that, learn from it, and move past it will make you a better parent. If you repeat the same mistakes, you're going to drive yourself crazy. So I think that's the other aha moment. The other aha moment is how quickly things go. Like, your child is 0 to 1 years old. Those 12 months go by in a flash, and you never get that time back. So what I tell dads is, like, that first year, take a sabbatical from your hobbies, get involved, be participatory, relieve your wife from certain duties to give her more free time. And by doing that, it instills more quality and it promotes bonding. I mean, I don't think I could have a possibly stronger bond with my son right now. And I still want to continue that and maintain that, and that it will evolve over time. But just having that in your life brings more smiles to your face than anything else. And that's, in the times we live in, a daily dose of humor is a wonderful thing. And that comes from family. And if it does, then you've done your job right.
The foundation in bonding really comes from the start. And so I love the tip of taking a sabbatical from your hobbies for the first year. And it's not to say that when the child goes to sleep, you play your video game or watch your TV show or whatever, but making a concerted effort to help your wife, even through whether she delivers biologically or you are adopting, there are still stressors from the wife's point of view to that you can help alleviate, through feeding and for comforting and diaper changing and waking up and giving baths and making sure the diaper bag has all the essentials in there. There's so many tips and resources there, making sure that she's fed and taken care of every day and making sure she's getting the nutrients she needs to be her best self. I think those are all great. And I love that you experience a strong bond because you set those parameters from the beginning and are able to share those with so many. What puts a smile on your face now when you look at the resources you're bringing for new and existing fathers who want to provide that better experience to their next generation?
I think it's just giving honest advice. I think that's what the feedback I get is that the content of the book is more relevant than not. And there's no real resource out there. If a dad feels like I'm lacking in just from the wisdom and from the role model perspective, there's nothing out there, which is a shame because there's millions of books for women on how to approach parenting. And as your kids get older, there's even more books about raising toddlers and, managing certain situations. Maybe it's autism, whatever it may be. But I think if fathers can get off on the right foot and a year into their life as a parent, look back, and if your marriage is stronger, if you had that bond with your child, you've done so much more than you could possibly think to give the next generation of kids a better experience. And that's the mission of the book, is just to provide something a little bit better to the next generation. And if you do it, it's mission accomplished.
Beautifully said. And you're right. My wife and I were looking for resources for fatherhood, and there are none. So having Rookie Father
Yeah.
is for those to read and to really have as a guide and playbook as a new father is just extraordinary. So I'm really excited to be able to share Rookie Father with our listeners and for those in my family and friendships that I know and personally for myself too to benefit from. Kendall, where can people go to learn more about you, Rookie Father, and purchase your book?
Sure. So the website is therookiefather.com. And within that, you'll see endorsements. You'll be able to read the reviews. The book's available at local national booksellers. And I tell people, support your local bookstores as much as you can. It's available nationally. Also on broader outlets, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, Amazon, of course, and Audible. A lot of men, the audio recordings are getting bigger now. They're much more interesting, podcasts and whatnot. And it's available on Audible as well. And in the book itself, you'll see my contact information. My email's in there, Twitter and Facebook, as well as Instagram. It's The Rookie Father is the handle. And I welcome anyone to reach out and look forward to connecting with future readers and your fans.
Kendall, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Andrew.